Hello and welcome back to Navigating NIL. My name is Tyler Langford, and I'm excited to be joined today by someone who's, had a really interesting life and career in the world of sports, Jed Collins. Welcome on, Jed.
Hey, Tyler, the whole Ecker Sports team, I could not be more excited to come on, talk to your coaches, begin this conversation around such an interesting topic going across the country, and hopefully I can provide value to some of the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're excited to have you on. We're excited to be, working with you guys. And I didn't want to give too much away in the intro because I know you're a man of many talents. I know you've lived a very fun and an adventurous life. So I'd love it if you would just kind of give the people a rundown of your origin story. Where are you from? How did you get where you are now? And what's going on in between?
I love it. So I'm going to go back to where I think I developed one of the critical keys of success and how I began to define myself as a great failure. Growing up in the backyard, my dad invented a game called King for a Day. And we were a basketball family. So it was a basketball game, one-on-one basketball. And the winning brother got to boss the other two brothers around as king for that day. Now, we played 1,000 games in our backyard. This was a daily, and if you slept over on the weekend, you got to play in King for a Day as well. And I remember very vividly in my childhood the 2 days that I won. Played 1,000 times, won twice. And what I came to realize was all those days sweating out on the court, I stopped measuring my success in if I won or if I lost. I started measuring it in if I got better. And that mindset shift for me at such an early age is something that I carried through my high school and college careers, definitely into my professional career. And of course, today as an entrepreneur, you have to be a great failure each and every day. So that idea that I grew up through that losing mindset, but didn't see it as a defeated mindset, I didn't lose. I continued to learn. I continued to adapt and improve. And then I got the fortunate gift in high school. So I went, and again, we were a basketball family. I was the only football guy, but they were tall and thin. I was short and a little stockier. As I went into high school, Mission Viejo, which if you can see, you can see over my shoulder, I got the blessing to become a winner. So I grew up with that mindset of how to deal with and overcome losing. And then I got into high school and we won 41 games in a row in high school football, which outside of De La Salle is almost unheard of. And as I really adopted the other side of this coin, what it takes to be a champion, what it takes to be a winner, what it takes to be on top and to stay on top, I got to marry and really pair a lot of the personas and a lot of the principles that a loser and a winner both have. They just have different perspectives and different kind of takeaways of the moment. So that's my origin story. That's where I got the opportunity to go to Washington State, become a student athlete, which we're talking about today. I don't know if that's a term we're going to use in the future. And being a student athlete was an incredible opportunity. Took me out of California into a new place, new world. And yeah, I'm always proud to be a Coug.
No, that's fantastic. And then obviously you went on to play professional football after your time in Washington State, and I'm sure that you learned a lot of lessons during your time as a pro athlete. What's the shift from the college world to the pros like? I mean, you mentioned growing up and learning the mindset that losing is a part of life. How do I get better through failure, right? I'm sure there's a lot of failure when you make that jump from college to the highest level.
It is tremendous. It is tremendous. And going even from high school to college is a huge accomplishment. Massive, massive difference in game. And as you look at the best of the best, the elite in the National Football League, I love to explain this story because as you mentioned, I was a journeyman. Again, great failure. I got cut 13 times in my NFL career before I became the best in the business in the number one rated fullback. But in my journey, I stopped looking at being cut and leaving a team as a total loss. I started to look at who was still in those rooms. How could I steal from the legends, from the greats that were still there? What were they doing that kept them in the room that I wasn't, as I would pack up a garbage bag full of my stuff and head to the airport? And what I came to realize was the biggest difference between the college game and the NFL game was measured in a very short increment. It was measured in inches. And I remember, and I'm holding up my fingers just an inch apart because very vividly, the moment I was introduced to this concept was working in Kansas City. I was working as a big skill, which football world we know we're divided into the skill, the big guys, and then the hybrids, the big skill. Being in the big skill group, I got to train with the linebackers. And a 16-year linebacker was one guy I just sat and observed and absorbed from. And I've noticed it out on the practice field. We would be out and we'd be required, go run 40 yards. Well, he would run 45. Go run 50 yards. He'd run 55. We'd be in the weight room, do a set of 10 at 225. He'd slide on 2.5s and he'd do a set of 11. Go get 2 games of tape. He'd get a third game. And all of these started to be things that I noticed, questions that I had. And I'm a curious person by nature. I'm a journalist at heart, which I would highly always recommend have some pen and paper around. And so I went up to him. I said, Zach, I don't get it. I don't understand how you don't understand how far we're running on the field or why you're doing 5 pounds on a bench press. What's the difference going to be? And he held up those 2 fingers. And he said, Jed, this is the difference. I come in every day and I try to steal an inch because up at this level, everyone is fast. Everyone is big. Everyone is strong. Everyone is learning the game. That's the separation. That's the difference. And as he started to explain it, he would say an inch leads to a yard to a first down to a score, and scores get you to wins. And why do wins matter? Because they take us to our ultimate goal, the Super Bowl. But it all began with this inch mindset. And I took this in my second year, again, getting cut, being a journeyman, trying to find my place. And I looked at my position as a lead blocking fullback. As a fullback, my job was going to be measured in 6 inches. When I went into a collision, did my opponent move back 6 inches or did I move back 6 inches? And it was that measurement that was going to decide how successful I was at my position. So I took this idea of Monday through Saturday, 6 days of the week, and I would go and steal each day. What was my inch that day that I was walking out, going home with, that my opponent or my competition didn't get? And it was with that mindset, with that idea of inches adopting into me, that I would go out on Sunday and I'd already stolen that 6-inch battle and I had begun to win and become successful. And it was truly that mindset shift that led me to finding a home in New Orleans, being rated the number 1 fullback, and finding a way to succeed at the highest level because I started to separate myself inch by inch.
So, what was your experience in New Orleans like then? Because, you go through this full career of being a journeyman, and then you get to the point where you understand the NFL, you understand that inch by inch mentality, and you have the chance to kind of manifest that every day and also be a leader in the locker room. And being a fullback, especially now, kind of comes with a certain mentality, right? And a certain there's a mindset that comes with it. So what was it like for you finding a home and really being able to kind of get comfortable somewhere for the first time? Or did you try and remain uncomfortable?
Everybody in the business is uncomfortable. If you get comfortable, you get replaced. But I do want to circle back to that idea of the fullback. One, we're losing a lot of them and for a lot of different reasons. But I always looked at it as fullbacks can be mean or crazy. And I wasn't that mean of a guy. I'm just not naturally inclined to have that demeanor. So I went with a little bit of the crazy atmosphere. I grew my hair out. I grew a beard. I would do certain things in the building or out on the practice field in games to get that message in the opponent's mind that this guy's a little off. He has a little screw missing. So I loved, again, building this persona, and something I talked to a lot of guys playing in college, trying to get to the NFL, or even in the college level or high school, is you have to find your role on the team. Develop and see where you fit in, who the coach wants you to be, and make sure the coach sees that player. You don't have to do but you have to fit into the program that the coach is trying to build. And as a fullback, my demeanor, my approach, my role was not going to be the guy who raised his hand and questioned strategy. It wasn't going to be this, wasn't going to be that. I was going to be the brute. I was going to be the thumper. And I was going to be the guy in the locker room that people enjoyed having around. You mentioned the word leader. I wouldn't have considered myself a leader in the NFL because there were so many more established players and great leaders. I was the communicator, and that's a skill that I take into today. I was the guy who would walk up to our free safety, our D tackle, our running back, our quarterback, the equipment guy, the salary cap guy. I communicated with everybody I could in the building. I think that was one of my great skill sets that I developed and also kind of utilized. But once I got to New Orleans, the opportunity changed because there was an equal opportunity. I got there actually during the lockout year. And part of the reason I actually got an opportunity and got my job was because my competition at the time legally couldn't practice because of all the contractual stuff with the lockout going on. So I walked into the first team huddle the first day of training camp, awaiting this guy to come and take my position and take my role. Just so happened I went in there with the mindset of I'm never letting him in here, and I kept him away and kept him at bay. But New Orleans was one of those places that said, throw reputation, throw entitlement, throw draft pick, throw money, throw it all out the door. If we see you provide value on this field and on this team, you're going to have a home. And they built their world around some great names and some great players, but they had a lot of guys like me who were the land of misfit toys that really found a place because we got an opportunity to go out and bang.
No, absolutely. And it sounds like, those early lessons from growing up in an athletic family, even though it wasn't football, carries on, to your career as a professional. But, you go through your career, right? And then all of a sudden you're just no longer a pro athlete. And it really is that fast. And I'm sure you have a feeling when things are starting to wind down and you have an understanding that eventually things are going to come to an end. But what's that like for you when that's what you've known forever? Not that you're just an athlete, because you're obviously a smart guy off the field, but what was your transition like from an athlete to someone, I don't want to say in the real world, but someone who's
It is
kind of
the
got to
real world.
figure it out?
Yeah. And it's amazing because today I talk to a lot of professional athletes making that transition. I also talk to a lot of people in the military who have a similar transition, leaving a locker room, leaving a family, leaving a unit, and being an individual. Um, and it is real world. The NFL is a dream. It's a fantasy. It's a place that you appreciate each day walking in, especially when you got cut 13 times. I appreciate it every day I got to live in that fantasy. But as I looked at the transition, again, I look at things differently because life is about perspective. I was so much more prepared for the transition because I died a dozen times before my career took off. I knew it was going to be over. They told me very early on, this ain't going to last very long. So I started to develop from an early part of my career. What was next? If the game of football was done with me, where was I going to go? What was I going to do? And that's where my epiphany around finances really started was in my first year. I didn't have any idea what to do with the money. They started giving me some of these paychecks. The NFL gives you great opportunity financially, but I was stumped. I was an accounting degree, a business major. I knew and was around a lot of people with money, but nobody had spoken to me or taught me the language of finances. And so from that first, second year on, even as I was getting cut, I was learning this language and I didn't know what, I knew that was the path that I was going to walk down. And to the point where my transition in my career came to a place I left and I did start walking down that path. It was encouraging. It was empowering. I knew I had a new passion and a new purpose, but I will say this, that transition knocks everybody on their butt. It is humbling. It is hard. I remember sitting in my cubicle looking around and going, nobody's ever going to clap for me again. That's ego and that's sad, but that's the truth. I lived in a world where I made a play. I looked up and there were thousands of people applauding and chanting. And now you lose all of that. Along with you lose the locker room, you lose the connection to your brothers and the connection to who you identified yourself with. So that transition is an extreme mountain and a tough one to climb. I was lucky because I knew which road I wanted to head down. 15 years later, I'm still heading down that path. And that allowed me to reevaluate who I was, what my purpose was, and then to even start building a new team. But that loss of the team, loss of the locker room, bar none, is the hardest thing about the transition.
No, I bet. And you mentioned a little bit about how, you get to the NFL and you don't necessarily know what to do with your money and then, you get to a point obviously where those NFL paychecks stop. And so I know at some point in between, specifically you kind of came to financial literacy as a life passion. And you mentioned knowing what you wanted to do once you got out of your playing days. So can you describe, I guess, your journey within financial literacy and how it brought you to where you're at today?
Absolutely. So I look up, one of my notes above my computer is June 21st, 2008. That is when I'm a rookie with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm walking out of my first kind of financial boot camp session that they had. And I'm a journaler. So again, I have all this written down. In a future episode, Tyler, we'll talk about the book I want to write called Undrafted, about my journey. But I look at that moment and I say, I don't understand how we haven't gotten to a point where somebody comes in and teaches this language. The gentleman that day was an advisor. He was looking for clients. He taught and talked about some things, but it was just such a poor representation of help, helping someone learn this. And you mentioned, yeah, a lot of guys get to the NFL and don't know what to do with their money. They know what they want to do with their money, but they don't know how to make the money last. They don't know how to capture the opportunity. One of my coaches, Joe Vitt, would always say, you leave this game with a bag of M&Ms, some money and some memories. That's it. If you get some wins, you get some good brothers, those are your memories. We all need to, especially in the day of the NIL, make sure we're capturing what the game is giving to us so we don't have to look back at what the game has taken from us. So I don't know if that was kind of now I kind of forget your original question, but uh, yeah, the idea of the finances started 15 years in that huddle, in that conversation. I wrote that message to myself. I am so proud that dream has come to fruition. Today, the NFLPA, the Players Association, provides an opportunity for me to go and teach those classes that I was in 15 years ago, but do it from an education perspective, do it from a true place of objective. My only goal is to teach you the language of money. But it was in that journey, in the times in the locker rooms, when guys started to ask me questions. Once they saw that I was reading about it or I heard comments I would make, guys would pull me aside later and say, well, explain this to me, or what was this? Or, hey, I know what the NFL provides that. What is that about? That was when I really started to find the idea of, it's not that we're just big dumb jocks. It's just a foreign language. Nobody has explained the language to us. And that's what I wanted to be able to do. Take the connections, take the communication skills I had, develop stories, develop analogies to translate this foreign language into a world in a comprehension that my brothers, and then what I realized was many, many more, need to be able to understand and speak.
I like the idea that football players aren't just big dumb jocks. It's just not put in their language, right? Because I make the argument, I think everybody to some degree is talented at something, right? And if you gave the regular person a NFL playbook, they have no idea what they're gonna like. They can't do anything with
Oh,
it.
because it's a foreign language.
Exactly, and they just haven't been taught it. And so, I mean, you and I can look at something, and in 5 seconds, you probably in half a second say that's cover two, right? Or you can read those playbooks and diagram plays, but that language is their language, right? And so you got to be really intelligent to understand that and understand schemes and all these various things. But maybe when you're spending all of your time doing that and trying to just pass your classes in college and whatnot, and worried about getting to that next level, you're not going to understand at the highest level what that financial literacy language is, and things that you learn in class also aren't going to perfectly represent what the world is like, especially for you, right? I mean, you mentioned it. You're cut 13 times. You don't know where your next paycheck is going to come from. You're sure it's going to come from somewhere, but you're working on it. So it's definitely an interesting thought. So I also am curious, did you always want to go into education? Because I know that
No.
being a pro football player hit late. So I'm curious what your
Yeah.
kind of your path was professionally outside of sports.
So you said something about everybody being good at something. Ralph Waldo Emerson has an amazing quote that says, and he says, man, but each person is better than me in some way. From that, I will learn from them. And I really have taken that to heart. You know, I have a sister with special needs. I have brothers who are extremely smart. I look at a football room. Everybody you meet can teach you something. And so if you keep that mindset, keep that curiosity and that hunger, that is one of the greatest gifts, and something that I would tell college students all the time is better to be interested than interesting. And it's an interesting balance. Um, where my allegiances kind of started down is I went to Washington State. My father's an attorney. He wanted all his sons to be attorneys. I think it's a great education, a great foundation. But as I was in school, I realized a kind of atmosphere of the world that nobody in my family was privy to was business. So I said, I want to go to business. And what my counselor told me was accounting is the fundamentals of business. It's the language of business. So that's where I wanted to get started. Big bat, not easy, and it was tough to kind of juggle both. But as I got into the NFL and I started to realize this financial piece, the only door that I knew of was being a financial advisor. People were like, Jed, you're interested in this. You're good at talking to people. You should go represent families and get people to give you their money. You're going to make a ton of money doing that. And so I did that for about 5 years. And guess what? It's a lot better paycheck than financial literacy. Um, but it began to question what was going to get me up. What was I going to be passionate about? In 5 years, was I really going to care if the Langford family went from 2 million to 3 million or 10 million to 20 million? It's a great cause. It's a great purpose. And again, it's a great career. But I looked at it and I said, I would much rather spend and serve my time helping people get to a financial advisor instead of be the financial advisor. And so I started to flip it on its head and say, well, what's the first step? Then what's the first 10 steps to get to a place where you need that financial advisor? So education was not the focus. It was not the beginning. I will say today I run an education technology company. Believe me, technology was never going to be something I've dabbled in and got into. But as we look at Money Vehicle, the scale and the ability to deliver to high schools across the country this message and this movement, it is one of those things where stars are starting to align, and the skill sets I do have are starting to be paired with teammates with new skill sets. And yeah, I'm starting to see my life purpose, which at one point I thought was football, now starting to be a new start.
So what is Money Vehicle?
One greatest open-ended question I ask to schools is to finish that sentence. Money is. So Money Vehicle is a education. Let me pause because I don't want to give my like salesy answer. Uh,
I get it. I understand
yeah,
the the
yeah.
balance you got to walk. Yeah.
Uh, Money Vehicle is attempting to be the first gold standard of financial literacy for high schools. Why we say that is because you have to know who you're building something for as you build it. And as we have developed Money Vehicle over the last 5 years, it has been intended to be a high school curriculum. I am tired of people saying, why didn't they teach me this in school? I'm tired of people coming up to me and saying, financial literacy is great. I went and did one session for these kids one time 6 months ago. It can't be a one-time thing. It has to be a full curriculum and program. So what Money Vehicle is trying to do is be those first 10 steps of a student's financial journey, but don't lecture, don't sit and point your finger. Tell them a story, build them an analogy, and then allow them the opportunity to apply what they want money to mean to them. Money Vehicle is a kind of analogy in itself to where we want students to see money as the vehicle, as the verb. Too many see money as the destination or the noun. We want them to start to see money differently. The title is the beginning of that transformation.
I like that. I think that's a good definition, and I like the high school target that you guys have seemed to really, or the high school demographic that you guys have really seemed to target, because that is where it's most important, right? Because once you get to college, you're worried about getting internships, finding your way to get a job. If it's ingrained in you early and you have an opportunity to, learn how to manage your money and all that from an early age, you're in great shape.
And how many students are not going to go to college these days?
Right.
Half? So if we start in college, we've missed half of our population, which again is a problem. So I appreciate that. And yes, we are building the best financial literacy course in the country. And I will be the first to stand on a table today and say ours may be the best out there, but I leave the ing, building, because we're not done yet. We're just going to continue to make it better. That's the mindset of a veteran, of a professional. Great. I don't measure myself based on what you do or who you are. I measure myself based on what I was yesterday. And with that, we're going to continue to add and gain those inches.
So how does NIL impact money vehicle and financial literacy, especially when it comes to conversations with high school and college athletes?
I see it as directly. I see them as locked in step together. Why? Because this is not a new story. This is just a new chapter of the old story. We have seen in a documentary that changed my life, ESPN's Broke documentary about professional athletes going broke. Now we're starting to see the same missed opportunity, and mistakes at the college level. And as we all know, the high school level is starting to catch stride in this NIL world. So we're looking at these young people and saying, here's an amazing opportunity. You are good at this one thing. And for so long, athletes have been told, have your blinders on, do your one thing, do it better than everyone, and all the other stuff gets taken care of for you. That, we're finding out, has been a mistake and has led to a lot of problems as that one thing is taken away. As we look at the NIL opportunity, we want to pair it with, well, think of what this can happen and mean to you if you did take advantage of it from a financial sense. That doesn't mean I invested all my money and I put it all. I'm seeing plenty of college athletes make an impact with their dollars, but that's because they are speaking this language of money and starting to balance what they want money to be to them. So as I look at NIL, I say this is a great movement. It's a great change. I know many players I played with should have had the opportunity of NIL. But that doesn't mean that it is going to be a realized dream or what we want it to become until these young people start to speak this language of both being a CEO and entrepreneur and business person, as well as financially literate, speak the language of money, and truly start the path and the road to financial freedom. So it is a connection, it is a combination. One is the opportunity, the other is the idea of capturing part of what that opportunity provides.
Well, you nailed it. People think NIL are the big dollars that are getting thrown around to the top recruits in basketball and football. And that is not NIL. That's what's been going on for years. It's just above the table now because of loopholes.
Bingo.
NIL is an influencer economy where every kid is their own brand and they're entrepreneurs. And they have the opportunity, A, to represent themselves, learn how to advocate for themselves if they're educated properly on that. And then B, if they're successful with doing so, then they gain those financial literacy skills, right? Because they have to understand how to manage their money, how to pay taxes, what being an independent contractor means, how signing deals can impact their financial aid agreements, things like Pell Grants. Like it really factors into every part of their life. And so obviously with us being an education company, and that's obviously where we overlap is you guys are so valuable for athletes from the financial literacy side, and branding is something that is important to us as well as an NIL education company that kids need to understand that not every kid's going to go get the biggest deal, or they're not going to get an offer from a D1 school, but eventually they're going to have to do something in the real world. And so having those life skills, whether it's from a financial literacy course for Money Vehicle or going ahead and learning about, branding and how to represent yourself on social media, it's all important regardless of NIL, but NIL is such an added benefit now that, kids have no reason not to take advantage of it.
Could not agree more. One thing, and you pointed out that mindset of becoming a CEO and a business person, they're also 1099 contractors, which means they have to handle all their benefits, all their insurance, all their
Mm-hmm.
taxes on their own. So you truly get thrown into, drinking from the fire hose. But as they do see that shift and they do start to identify, I am a business. Jay-Z said it best. I'm not a businessman. I'm a business, comma, man. As you look at that, they have to start incorporating some of the same principles, and I call them principles of success, translate from their game to their school, to their finances, to their business. And they need to start seeing that being able to handle a paycheck and do it on your personal level is exactly the same as being able to handle paychecks and do it on a professional level. These principles of success, these foundations are intertwined throughout a lot of the things that they are going to do. And really, that's why I look at athletes and I love to talk to them, because I communicate this idea of what makes you great in your sport. Find out who you are, and then all you got to do is move those skills, because they're all tangible, they are all able to transfer, they're portable. Put them into another direction, but you have to identify what those skills are first.
No, absolutely. Yeah, and identifying what your brand is and what matters to you and what companies you want to partner with and all of those things are part of, being your own CEO, right? It's determining the future of you, which is a business. So it is an interesting concept and it all requires that financial literacy aspect. So I know, you guys are going to have a lot to do in the sports world going forward. I guess one thing I'm curious about as well, running it back to your sports career is you learn a lot of lessons in life that translate to sports and vice versa. What are some things that you bring with you as a former athlete into the business world that you think have benefited you?
Again, I'm going to go back to these pieces I stole from those locker rooms. I call them rookie to veteran because it was truly an unspoken language of how to go from that rookie mindset to the veteran and professional mindset. The first step in it is the be a pro mindset. Be a pro means confidence, trust, and value. I'm going to give it to you in a very short time frame. Obviously, there's a bigger message here, but the first person that has to believe in anything you're going to do. I'm going to be the starter. I'm going to be the star. I'm going to get this job. I'm going to go and get promoted. The first person that's going to believe has to be yourself. And that belief is not an external voice in cockiness. That belief is an internal voice in confidence. Cocky, external, confidence, internal. And so it's framing that message, looking at yourself and really trying to manifest, I believe I can do this. I am doing this. I am going to do it. The second piece is building trust within your team. I have a great little piece about Andy Reid's first words ever spoken to me were, son, we can't beat ourselves out there. Then he walked away. With that message, with that one sentence, he was teaching me about trust. As the coach, as the everybody, they had to trust who I was going to be on the field. And I had to really start to evaluate, if I'm confident in myself, where is that trust in my team? Do they believe and look at and believe I can go and do the assignment? So if I'm confident, I have to then build trust within my team. And the last piece is something that every professional does. It connects with the game of inches. It connects with a lot of principles, but you add value. Every day you put your name on something. Could be an email, could be a client, could be a project, could be a play, could be a practice. You put your name on something. I love football because we all start with that tape on our forehead at the beginning of training camp with our name on it. If your name is attached to it, you have taken ownership of it, and the value or the opposite is going to be associated with you. So I have to be confident in what I do. I have to build trust within my team. And then every day I have to add value in some way. And I think that mindset, the be a pro kind of rainbow or circle that we kind of walk through, is something that I had to go to when I showed up at each team I went to. You have to show up on college campuses, high school campuses. You have to show up at work in any building in the world. If you have confidence, you build trust, and you add value, you're going to become a professional and you're going to be successful.
No, that's great, and that rings true, I think, throughout, like you'd said. And Randy Ecker, our CEO, he told me early on. He said, if you make yourself indispensable, you're good to go. So if you find one thing that you're really good at that brings value every day, you're going to be an effective member of a team. And like you said, you can lead by example. You can fall back into the culture. There's a million ways you can kind of run with it. So I think that's fantastic, and I think you've given us a lot of good advice. But before we go, I've always got a couple questions I like to ask the guest at the end, kind of a little 5-question gauntlet. So the first one is, what is a funny but embarrassing sports moment from your long career?
Oh, God. So my senior year or junior year of high school, we were the Diablos, and one of our home jerseys was our white uniforms. And we're lining up to go out to circle and get warm up started. And I have that moment of like, oh, I got a little gas to pass before I get out there. Turns out it wasn't just gas. And the team runs out onto the court. I run back into the locker room, go into the sink, and I'm now having my shorts and my spandex out onto into the sink. And I'm trying to clean everything, clean it. But then I hear, hey, we got 3 minutes before the game starts. I got to go play the game. Put back my stuff back on. I go out, and throughout the game, the opposing team's fans, I hope, start chanting "poop stain." And by the end of the game, which we won, and I played well because I'm focused, poop stain was something I had somebody like I went home a year ago and they came up to me and was like, that was one of the funniest things I've ever experienced in high school. And they were in the stands. So that was extremely embarrassing. And yeah, poop stain is the nickname I hope people will forget.
That is hilarious. That's fantastic. Obviously, as a professional athlete, you got to take good care of yourself, right? I know there's a lot of discipline, and I know you are the type of guy from some background conversations we have who takes very good care of yourself, up early, working out, proper diet. What's a cheat meal like for you? If you're having just a dirty
Oh,
cheat meal, what are you hitting?
ice cream. I mean, that's not a meal, but that's something that like I refuse to give up. And like I know it's unhealthy. I know it's bad. You know, burger and all that stuff. Like I work out enough that it's like that. You can argue there may be some benefit to some like meat and stuff. Ice cream, I just know is terrible. You give me any flavor and I will be happy. And I also love that it takes longer to eat. Like you give me a bowl of ice cream, you'll come back like 30 minutes later and be like, what are you? I'm enjoying it. Leave me alone. Like that's, my girls get at me all the time. Like, why you take so long to eat the dessert? You got to enjoy it.
Because I need it.
So
Yeah, I love
yeah,
it. You got to take your
it's my
time with
treat.
it. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
I'm getting up at 5. I'm gonna go work out. I'm enjoying my ice cream right now. Leave me
Amen.
alone.
Amen. I'm gonna do what I must do.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, so there's I've heard a lot of answers to this question. I'll put it this way, and it's rare to hear one I haven't heard before, but I'll give you a shot.
Challenge
What
accepted.
superpower are you choosing if you have the opportunity to pick anything in the book?
I mean,
My answer
it
is
is.
super basic, so I'm not going to disrespect
Yeah.
anything you say.
Uh, I mean, I would have to go with the ability to read people's minds. I'm very curious about how the mind works. Neuroplasticity is a conversation I had to myself in 2009 when I was in the NFL and wondering what the damage in the CTE and yada yada yada. Again, stimulating myself on a daily basis, proactive and reactively healing my brain made me but I'm just interested in philosophy and how the brain works. Uh, so I would say, yeah. And some people might be like, I don't want to know what other people think. There's pros and cons to any special thing you want to do. But yeah, that, I think it's Magneto or who's this X-Men who could read people's minds.
It
That's where
might.
I'd
I'm
go.
not sure, but I know. Yeah, that's a good answer though. I agree. I think
Professor
as long as I
X.
can
It's
turn it
Professor
off,
X. Yeah.
as long as I'm not walking around with other people, like if you can turn it off, I'm with you. I think that's a great answer.
What was yours?
Um,
That's so simple.
yeah, it's easy. And like you said, it'd be
No,
valuable
what
and it'd
was
be
your
interesting.
answer?
Oh, I misheard you. My answer would be flying. I think it'd be sick, just fly or teleport. I mean, I just feel like I get a lot out of traveling, and I enjoy
Yeah.
moving around and kind of going and seeing new places. So I'm also a big food guy. So I'd take the opportunity to travel to some cool places and enjoy
Get some
good
grub.
food. Yeah, yeah, and I also
Oh
like
my man.
experiencing different type of people. So I would take the opportunity to do so. But I do also really like the um, reading people's minds answer. I just, I gotta be a little unique.
You got every reason.
Alrighty, final, nope, second to final, penultimate one. If you're on a deserted island, right, and you got to survive, let's say a year, what three things are you bringing with you to that island?
Hmm. My wife, my journal, and a year's supply of ice cream.
There you go. I love it. I love the callback. And then finally, I know you're someone who has played with a million fantastic athletes and been around a lot of people. A, as a California guy, so you grew up in a great high school scene, but then B, obviously as a professional athlete. Who's the best athlete you've ever played with or against?
Oh man, that's such a great question. Yeah, I would have to go with the, and it is endless because you look at guys and you just go, I don't understand how we are both humans. Um, One of them is not very surprising. His name's Calvin Johnson, aka Megatron.
Yeah,
Watch that dude. Oh God, you're like, dude, you're a 6'7" deer, and you're like a tarantula deer. Is that a thing? Like, just in you, he is the creative character guy in wide receiver body. Like that's who you develop him to be, Calvin Johnson. Um, I would say one of the other ones would be either Haloti Nada, who I played against, or Carl
interesting.
Nix, who I played with. Both just giant humans who were also super light on their feet and super kind of athletic and fluid. Like I've seen Carl Nix at 350 do a slam dunk, and you're like,
That's crazy.
gosh, that's craziness. Um, so yeah, it'd probably be instead of the like athletic freak, it'd be the like giant freak.
I'm
And
with
those
you.
dudes are both kind of uh, it's too hard. I could go 40 people deep on that list. Uh, but yeah, those are the first ones that popped to mind.
That's good. No, I'm a Haloti Nada guy. I like big guys that can move. You know,
Yeah,
the nimble big men are probably my favorite breed of football player.
nice,
So I'm
nice.
with it. That and the fullback. So I really appreciate your time. I'm not gonna keep you on for any longer, but you're always welcome to come on the podcast. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again, and I know we got some big things coming. So I really appreciate your time.
I will end with a message and just wrap it up in a minute. NIL is coming. It is coming to your students, your athletes. It is coming to your schools. The question is, are you going to be ready for it? And this is one thing that you can prepare for. You can build the ability to take advantage of this opportunity. And our hope with Ecker Sports Money Vehicle is that this is the dawn of a new age for athletes. This is the idea that we are no longer the broke documentary or mindset. We are no longer the came and gone and in the past. We are using this stage as a launching pad to whatever we become. Your high school athlete is going to become something far beyond just an athlete. This is the moment that they get a chance to identify who that is years before any of us were challenged or got the opportunity to do so. Great opportunity to talk to you. Hopefully you learned something, took something away, or just enjoyed it. Tyler, thank you, and we'll be talking again soon.
Awesome.